Must be other people in China who have their own camp though that like are secretly like horrified by the Chinese government.
Yes. So here's the second order, right? The second
Yeah.
order is you can actually think of these as points on a triangle, and so you have like I put them as CCP, NYT, and BTC. Okay.
So New York Times, Bitcoin, and China's Communist Party. Okay.
Correct. That's right. Those are like the three extremal points on the triangle, right? And actually, all three have their extremists. So I'll come to that point. So CCP, obviously, that's basically you must submit. It's the most straightforward. The Chinese Communist Party is powerful.
They'll you up if you don't do what they want, and they're very clear about it. You'll disappear. Yeah.
That's right. And the thing is that the social contract there has been getting worse for entrepreneurship. We see Jack Ma because that's such a huge deal that it makes news overseas, right? We see the CEO of ByteDance. An ironic thing, by the way, on ByteDance is while he was getting attacked in the US for TikTok potentially being a surveillance app, he was also getting attacked in China for being insufficiently loyal to CCP and so on and so forth, right?
Yeah. No, these people. I mean, these people are attacked on both sides almost no matter what in these positions these days. It's the nature of it.
So basically, at one corner, CCP must submit, which is they're powerful, you're not, submit. You know what? There's a logic to that. I can understand why people do that, because they've got all the power. And so,
yeah, it's pretty nice to be rich and to be friends with everyone who's super powerful in your country who's not going to come up your family. It's interesting what you're describing, Balaji, because it's almost like, I guess the rule of this triangle is that if you're on one of the extreme corners, you're going to attack people who are not in one of your corners. And so both sides always are going to be attacking the things in between as a way to scare them towards them, basically. Right?
That's right. And actually, the BTC corner has its own crazy people, which I'll come back to. But okay, so CCP, you must submit, right? Then you go to the wokes and they say you must sympathize. Now, there's a real trick that they do here, right? You must sympathize. Well, the CCP says that they are powerful. What the woke say is that you are powerful. Because you are white or male or straight or cis or, like upper middle class or whatever, right? You are an oppressor. You're in an oppressor category. Here's the trick, right? Intersectionality turns us all into oppressors. Because if you do the or statement, right? Like 50% of the world is male and maybe 90% is straight and like 60% of that.
Well, I mean, I'm especially an oppressor though. I think I check all the boxes, right? So I mean, I feel like I won this game, except maybe I'm Jewish through my mom's side. But just Indians kind of in the oppressor class too these days in America, right? In tech world.
Here's the thing: is basically like your card will get yanked when it is deemed. Is Peter Thiel gay? Is is Anne Wojcicki, is she considered a woman? Is gosh,
is Adrian Fenty or Thomas Sowell considered black if they go against, if he goes against the unions or Sowell goes against these other, yeah, exactly.
Exactly. So the thing is that what happens is, you're attacked on your blind side. If you've got these various facets, right? Okay, you might be a person of color, well, you'll be attacked as a man. Oh, you're a woman, well, you'll be attacked as white. So everybody's an oppressor on some axis. That's the trick.
So you're vulnerable. So if you don't obey what we want or we don't go along with what we're saying, then you're going to get attacked, basically. And so everyone's vulnerable to be attacked and everyone has to be afraid.
Well, I literally mean it from an algebra standpoint, right? If you work it out, everybody is either, white or straight or cis or some oppressor category. So what wokeness does is it turns everybody into thinking they're a victim and but also being represented to others as an oppressor. So it's this war of all versus all. It puts everybody into conflict because everybody thinks there's a victim and everybody thinks of you as an oppressor on some dimension. You see what I'm saying, right? And so the thing is,
except for me, I'm only on the oppressor side, I think.
Okay, sure. Well, but you see what I'm saying, right? Like basically, this is something where the trick with the CCP, it's very straightforward. It's just straight down the middle. You must submit because they're powerful.
Yeah.
With wokeness is you must apologize because you're powerful. You're powerful because you're white or you're male or you're straight. And then what happens after you apologize because you're powerful? Well, then, okay, you need to give your money. You need to give your status. You need to give your this. You need to give your that. Basically, both CCP just says, bow your head, right? Wokeness says, sympathize because you're powerful and then bow your head in shame. But the end state of it is very similar, which is bow your head. Wokeness is more tricky, right? Because it's not straight down the middle. It pretends to empower. In this fashion, it's actually very similar. It's it's capitalism compatible, radical left, actually, in the sense that, with communism, communism was the redistribution of wealth, and wokeness is the redistribution of status. Communism had, the union strike, and wokeness has the social media mob. Think about the microeconomics of this, or the micro status economics.
Yeah.
A woke mob gathers, and they can beat somebody into submission, and they see the hearts go up on their side, and the RTs go up on their side, and the followers go up on their side.
Yeah.
And playing a game for real stakes where they can humiliate their enemies and boost their friends. What's not to like? All you have to do is mash a button and yell at somebody. That's really easy relative to building.
Yeah, no, I think I said something about how BLM was backed by Marxists at one point, and I got all these people on Twitter like threatening to put gas leaks in my house and attacking me and just saying nasty things, basically. Yeah.
We'll come back to this point because I think we need to start using more pseudonyms and stuff. It's tricky for us because we're in this transitional age. But
I have lots of guns in my house. I'm not too worried about them actually coming here, but that's a whole other conversation.
Okay. But
this is Texas apology. Come on.
It's Texas. Okay, yeah, you're probably okay there. But so the thing is with these woke mobs, they, like the union strikes, are seeing a visible benefit of yelling at people online and ganging up on them and so on and so forth, right? They're gaining status from it. Now, what they're losing, though they don't fully understand it, is that by buying into the woke social contract, they may be able to yell at somebody as, mansplaining today, but they will get hit as being white privileged tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right?
So they're basically attacking themselves later, basically. Yeah.
Or somebody else can now hit them. They've now essentially cut down all assumptions of good faith in society. They're leeching the trust out of society. Right?
Yep.
Because everybody is accused of the worst possible motivation for anything they could have done. And people are looking for a way to call out the other person to gain status at their expense, even if this is not fully conscious. It's basically like the hearts go up.
So a lot of this woke part of the triangle, the things they're doing are negative sum. They're actually going to hurt themselves. But doesn't that mean it's self-destructive and it's just going to go away after a while, though? Or can it just do this for a long time before it goes away? Because it seems like you're describing a self-destructive system.
Well, I think it's going to be self-destructive because of inflation, but not necessarily because of its internal. So we'll come to that. Okay. So now we get to the third thing of the triangle, right? So CCP, you must submit. Wokeness, you must sympathize. And CCP, you must submit. NYT, wokeness, you must sympathize. And by the way, the reason I put NYT there as opposed to CCP is NYT is upstream of the state. That's to say a corporate journalist can get a politician fired, but not vice versa.
Yep.
It's not fully deterministic. They can write a negative article and they may survive that. But in general, right, it's one way versus the above, right? So NYT, like they're saying, like if China has a state-controlled press, America has a press-controlled state, in the sense of hold them accountable, get them fired. Okay, fine.
Of course.
So the third quadrant of the triangle, BTC, is you must be sovereign, right? And what does this mean? This means that rather than bending to CCP, or rather than like sympathizing like the wokes want you to do, you have to hold your private keys locally, and the extreme version of this is the so-called Bitcoin max.
Just so people understand, holding your private keys locally means you don't even trust Coinbase or anyone with your money, because someone else could take it away. So you actually literally have distributed money that's just yours that only you have access to. That would be the extreme version of crypto. Yeah.
That's right. So everything is as local as possible, so it overlaps obviously with prepping, which was a subculture prior to Corona, but now is the culture, remember how weird it was 2 years ago to have, N95 masks rather, and so on. Like that was weird, right? I took a lot of flack.
We sent a bunch of ours to the local hospital because we felt guilty when it happened. But my wife's a prepper as well, but that was unusual. Yeah.
Yeah. And so the thing is, like, the next crisis is very obvious. It's going to be inflation, I think, or at least inflation in a lot of physical goods. I think digital goods will be fine because their marginal costs are so low. So what will happen is the physical world, basically the nature of what COVID did is it turned the physical world into a premium product. That's say, we've made it really cheap to put a lot of transistors on a chip, but it's expensive to put a lot of people in a room.
Yeah.
We've moved from, it's not the digital divide anymore, it's a physical divide. So physical is still valuable, but it's a premium product. Everything gets done digital first. It's a remote meeting. It is, VR entertainment.
How is this tied to the sovereign corner? What are you
tied to sovereign corner? Okay. So the thing is that basically, just like there's extreme CCP people and extreme wokes, there are extreme maximalists who think, like Bitcoin is the only coin, and having anything other than that, you're an evil person, and you're a scammer, and you're a fraud, and you're a shill, and you're a charlatan, and so on and so forth, right? And in its own way, it's similar to wokeness, which makes these accusations of being racist, sexist, et cetera, et cetera.
But they're not powerful enough to actually do anything to people. So like the woke people and the CCP people, right?
Yeah, but they're on an exponential.
This is interesting because obviously you're more on the side of these sovereign crypto corner people, the BTC corner. But I assume you're not like attacking people for using Dogecoin or something and like trying to make them in trouble.
I think Dogecoin is stupid, but do I think, for example, something like Zcash, I think that's really good because that Zcash is
because it's more private. No one could track it no matter what, right? Which is
that's right. That's right. So the thing is, as a venture capitalist, let me talk about the maximalist position a little bit here because I think it is. I want to steel man it before I criticize it, right?
Yep.
Because there's one way of thinking about it is what a liberal is to a woke, like a libertarian is to a maximalist. Like that's to say, it's like an extreme version that then inverts some of the principles and so on, right?
Yeah.
So essentially, there's different reasons that people become Bitcoin maximalists. And people are going to hear a lot more about this, by the way, I think over the years to come. But one of them is just total distrust in institutions, okay, which is understandable. I'm going to list a bunch of stuff that I agree with, right? A second is, fear of upcoming inflation, which I agree with, or deplatforming by banks, and just general disgust with the debt culture of not just the U.S. but the world, like 30-year mortgage and
this is like this extreme position of people who are really smart and really cynical, you could almost say, about how the world works right now.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's something where all of this I'll agree with up to the point that they lose me is, and therefore no coin other than Bitcoin, right?
But I mean, isn't it a little more cynical than that, Balaji? Because obviously, like you and I both know, like we need things like we need things like Palantir and Stripe, and we need competent institutions sometimes to accomplish certain things, right? Don't we? To actually build things that are competent, we need institutions sometimes.
So this is right. So this is basically the failure mode of like extreme, like ultra libertarianism, right? Ultra libertarianism is something that is like the caricature, right? Of libertarianism, where I didn't actually think it existed, but it's people who truly don't trust anybody, right? Who attack the motives of every single person and so on.
But you and I are both builders, and we know that in order to get things done in the world, you need entities that attract smart people and build together.
What we want is something where it's neither you must submit, nor you must sympathize, nor you must be sovereign, but something in the middle, which I call the decentralized center. It's like the center of this triangle.
The more sane people who aren't all the way at the extreme. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, it is basically the relative moderates of each, because you actually don't want a society where nobody ever submits or nobody ever sympathizes.
This is really interesting. So you're saying there's actually some wisdom on each of these corners, and we actually want to learn the wisdom from each of these corners. So you do want to be somewhat woke in the sense that you should be stopping yourself if you have biases that are unconscious biases, or you do want to be somewhat decentralized and skeptical of institutions that are big and broken and scary, but you don't want to be crazy on either side.
Exactly. And the thing is, this is the practical set of trade-offs. Look, there's many possible optima within that space that different people will choose, right? But in practice, you don't want a society where nobody ever submits is like San Francisco, where people can run into a Walgreens and steal everything, right? The society where nobody ever sympathizes is like the total opposite of woke society. It's like, I don't know, Russia in the 90s, right? Everybody assumes everybody else is a scammer and cynical and whatever. And that's actually similar to the place where everybody's sovereign. Then there's zero possibility of trust, zero possibility of cooperation.
So those are three corners. Got it.
That's right. And so I think that ultimately, that's right. Like basically, if again, to caricature, there's the Democrat wants more government, the Republican wants less government, the Libertarian wants no government, and the technological progressive technologist wants a new government. That is to say, a new state, right? So now let's talk about that, the network state.
Yep.
So what I think we're on course for, we're actually already at, it's kind of funny, I write these essays and I think that they're going to be predicting 6 months or, so it's like 5 years or 10 years out, and then it happens in like less than 6 months. Okay. It's kind of amazing actually. But one of the things I've been thinking a lot about is if you think about this global graph of everybody connected together, You know, like where you and I, for example, we have a link between ourselves, despite the fact that we're whatever thousands of miles away, right?
It's
And
a
there's
special
people who
link.
are physically closer to you and physically closer to me that we don't know and we wouldn't recognize on the street, right?
Yep.
So what is happening, but it has been happening over the last 15 or 20 years. I don't know if you remember this, but 8 years ago, you know, we were at a thing and I was like, you know, Snapchat is on a straight line with the dissolution of the nation state. Do you remember that?
Yeah, no, I remember the discussion of this is kind of like correlated with some interesting things in our society, arguably.
Yes. And basically, it's a one-liner. It's meant to be provocative and poke, and people are like, "What do you mean, you crazy guy?" And the point is that Snapchat has somebody in, you know, New York or in California, 3,000 miles away, sharing intimate moments, but they don't know their next door neighbor, right?
Yep.
So the fundamental assumptions behind geographic polities, where people who are near each other share cultural norms and therefore agree on laws and, you know, therefore can resolve disputes because they're in the same community and they have some degree of consensus, those assumptions are being invalidated. Communities are not geographical, they are communities of mind. If
Yep.
you notice, for example, like on Twitter, all the bios, they used to read something like, you know, hey, I'm Jim, I'm 32, I'm in Pittsburgh, I like the Steelers, you know, whatever, right?
Yeah, it used to be more about your location and where you are, but now it's more about your thoughts and how you identify with communities that have similar things they're interested in and think about things similarly. That's interesting. Yeah.
Exactly. So now it's all tribal banners, pound Bitcoin, pound BLM, you know, like pronouns, laser eyes, all
So,
of
so even the pronouns, which is from this old woke corner, is actually part of it's this new network state thing because they're actually just signifying themselves based on that perspective and viewpoint, which is how the whole world is moving towards.
That's right. So essentially, one way of thinking about it is or last 20 something years, we just uploaded the entire world in plain text onto the internet, right? And at first it was okay because we sort of had, you know, like the offline trust and relationships and so on, you know, like let's say you take a school when Facebook got schools online and
Yep.
those people pretty much knew each other.
Yeah,
Right?
I mean, it used to only reflect the real world, but then it became the real world, and when it became the real world, then this changed everything.